All right, good morning. As I further work on honing my skills for Roll20, as again, this is the first time as a GM I've ever used a tabletop simulator, tabletop device like Roll20. I've obviously been involved in games as a player, but I have been able to put in the character tokens. So Dell, I'm using their faces, so there'll be no confusion as to who's who, as opposed to art. So Dell's character's name will go in here when Dell gives me his character. I do have Brian's character, Sylvester. So Brian's character, his image here. So when he's on the map in a location, uh, not so tactical. It's half a league per day, so 2 is 1 league. That's a league is roughly what somebody could travel on foot or horseback in 1 day comfortably. They could push it and go further in a day. But the point is, let's say Brian starts the session and he tells me he's in the North Woods. I'll drop that there so we all know roughly where he's at in session. Dell may tell me he's in Dredgewater. Sam may tell me, he's in Dredgewater. It right depends. And of course, their character name will change. Above them now is the repute. So this is their level. The goal in our game, obviously, is to try to earn repute every session. They can do that with a guaranteed achievement of something in session. They'll get their repute as a group or an individual. They can also earn repute from doing heroic deeds that are witnessed by the rest of the by people who will talk about it. So they're all basically pretty stout starters. Normally the game starts at 3. We never start characters completely incompetent. 5 puts them in a nice place for 4 sessions. This is a chronicle, so the goal is to try to achieve level 10 in your campaign. So in the book we recommend with repute 3 starters in a campaign, you would play 7 sessions, giving them a chance to get to level 10. In a chronicle, again, that's not, it's not like you lose the game if you don't, but it would give them an opportunity to achieve the highest level. And in chronicles, there'll be a passage of time. So this session, the next chronicle might be a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, right? So it will also reflect that repute and what they're doing in that 2-year period. Okay, underneath is their condition, 0 to 4. Now, we don't use hit points. We use conditions. And every person in the game, no matter how amazing they are all subject to the same vulnerability. So if Sam's character suffers fatigue from a combat or weather or lost or starving or whatever, and he suffers fatigue, I will note that fatigue on his little character as 1, number 1. At some point, if they're up to 4, that means they're very, very dangerous. They're on the verge of being killed. So when this little number up here gets to 1, they're fatigued. 2, they're battered. 3, they're injured. And 4, they're dying. Obviously, 5, they're out of play. Right. So right now he's at 0 for conditions. He's in good shape. Anybody who starts this particular chronicle as a peasant with 0. So, for instance, if we start this session and Dell tells me he's a peasant, he will start with 1, fatigued due to starvation. Remember, we are in a famine. Anyone with a prestige of 1 or more will not be suffering the condition of starvation. They have means to feed themselves, whether it's just a larger portion of grain, whether they have a little more money to get the food, whether they have rights to hunt or fish. But if you're a peasant, you're going to be suffering starvation. It's a very dangerous time in Dredgewater as the peasants are starving, and it's a little unruly. And it's an unseasonably cold winter. It's not a normal winter. It's very cold. So anyway, so again, if Brian says, hey, I'm along the river Dredge fishing or watching for poachers, and he tells me roughly on the map where he starts game, boom, I'll drop him into the woods. And that's where he starts game, right? Sam is coming, I believe Sam said his character is a priest sent from London to help convert the pagans. So whether we start with him in Dredgewater, which I think would be wise, as opposed to trying to get him, I don't even go that far south. So we're in East Umbria, and London is the furthest southern point along the Thames. That part of the map I don't even have on here. So we'll start him in East, obviously somewhere around here. He'll get a chance to put his character in session where he wants to be. Dell the same, but they will have to pretty much start on this map. I don't want to get the game so crazy that people are too different. I don't want Dell in Ireland, for instance. It's not conducive to us achieving any kind of goals as a party. Everything is now set as a map, so I can't really F up and pick up pieces of the map by accident. They can only move their tokens around, which is nice. I think they should have the right to move their tokens as well. And then I've added a task bonus. So now when they say they're doing something and I give them a bonus, they can roll their task bonus die, which will tell them, it'll automatically add the +1. And then, of course, they'll have to add their attribute score to it. So let's say Brian makes a hunting check. Let's say Brian's hunting and he wants his hounds. So Brian has 2 wolfhounds as mooks. He can command these. He has kind of a spiritual connection to these 2 wolfhounds that he uses, he hunts with. So they're technically, if he narrates how he uses them and he does this effectively, he will get a bonus of +2. So when he narrates that he sends his hounds north looking for poachers, and I say, wow, make a check, an average check to see if they tree anything, any potential poachers, or find something, anything, right? He would hit wolfhounds, and it'll automatically add the 2 for his 2 dogs, 9, right? So let's say I say it's an average check, 6, he gets a 7 + 2, 9, and I would then narrate what they find, right? I would tell them that you hear them baying and barking, and you know they've treed something, right? These giant wolfhounds have treed something or found something of interest, and so that's very simple now. So when he attacks with the wolfhounds, it's a simple boom, +2, 10. They would do their wounded damage, right? And so remember, he doesn't get 2 attacks in a turn, right? But he can use his wolfhounds like a weapon, or he can attack with his bow and wolfhounds, right? And that would be obviously his normal combat modifier plus the wolfhounds. And he'll have to add his attributes and things to this. I haven't been able to figure out how to do the macros for the character sheet. I just cannot seem to find a way to program it in. It would be great to give Brian the chance to just hit body and it would, or combat, and it would automatically add his body to the D12 for us. That's something I'm still working to learn. But part of this process, the reason I'm sharing these videos is I'm excited to be actually running chronicles of our game, Del and I's game, but also I'm learning Roll20, and I think it's kind of fun to share the process of learning this fancy new stuff for me. I've always been very theater of the mind. I still am. We will play tonight much theater of the mind, but we'll be able to click over to here and at least make it easier to track where Del's at. You know, if Del says, hey, I'm helping this Irish clan deal with this thing over here, right? We can drop him in a space where we're all aware that Del's quite a distance from, where they're at. So anyway, that's an update. I won't keep inundating you with these videos, but I wanted to give everybody an idea where I'm at. I've also added the map page. So now there's a world map page that the players can click on. And this is purposely meant to look like an old map of the world. Remember, back in the Dark Ages, people only knew the world immediately around them. People didn't travel very far. So everything was vague other than what they knew. And they used names. They might name things like there might be the Lumpy Hill, right? And everybody knows, oh, the Lumpy Hill, that's north. That's 2 lumps, 2 hills together, right? And they all locals would give it a name, right? So this is their known world for most of these guys, right? Now, Sam's character is coming up from London, so he would know much of England, right? At least between London and here. He doesn't mean that he's experienced it all, but he will witness a lot on his travels to get up here. So his character would have just more knowledge, naturally, of the world outside of Dredge land. Remember, this is basically the land of Dredge, okay? But they can at least have some idea of where London lay, right, in the world, the River Thames. And it's obviously exaggerated because people they hear stories of the kingdom of Northwich with mountains and mines, but this would be more of drawn up in a very extreme way, right? Dredgewater to them is a tiny little village on the river, but in somebody's mind who would have drawn up Dredgewater to them seems huge, right? Because they've lived their whole lives in Dredgewater, so they're gonna skew the size of Dredgewater in their mind. The River Thames, they hear stories of this great river that divides the entire country, but they don't know really how big it is unless they've been there. Then the cliffs, South Point is the furthest point south. Basically, it's a city. It's a city. London, Northwich Kingdom, and then of course Dublin and Ireland. And remember, everything east of the River Dredge belongs to Ireland's queen. So technically, this and this are Ireland, as far as who controls that country. And then we have Northwich, which is basically north of Dredgewater, the Kingdom of Northwich. And then we have the Kingdom of East Umberland, which is Dredge and down is all Eastumberland, right? And then of course South Point would all belong to Eastumberland. So we only have really 3 major countries. We have lots of little kingdoms, right? Little aldermen. So, and then of course attached to this one is also Dredgewater. So they get an idea. Here's the Gold Leaf Inn. The Gold Leaf Inn is the really nice, fancy inn that actually sits over the river. This would be the expensive hotel, so to speak, in town. And then the Blackleaf Inn is here in the middle of town with a church, etc. And then we've got, so it's just a rough sketch of, and then of course appears Dredgetown, the Palisade of Washburn and companies here. And then really over this rise would be what's called Dredgewater Downs, which is a crossroads. And that would have a little church, a little chapel, and a little, it's called the Washburn Arms, which is run by Martine. And that's pretty much the little Dredgewater village they all live in. This sketch made by Todd McGowan for us was the original sketch to give us an idea. We hired Todd to create art for the book as well as maps for the book, and this was his first rough sketch, which I absolutely love. And then he's got a permanent ink map for our book, which actually gives labels some of these buildings, and there's a legend chart that tells us where it's at. But for this, I want it to be more what they vision in their head, living in this little world. So that's an update, and I won't do any more of these videos, folks. I just wanted to bring everybody up to date of this learning process, and so those who tune in to watch, they're going to be able to hopefully see, and I will roll the RSC live. The players will actually know how dangerous the roll is, 7. And they'll know that 7 is, moderately dangerous. They won't know what it is. I'll introduce it in session when the context makes sense. But they'll at least know when I've rolled the first RSC. They'll know when I've rolled the second. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to say, okay, guys, I'm rolling the next one. But when they see me drop those 3 dice, they'll know I'm rolling up another random variable. Then, of course, when I ask them to make a check, they'll roll the task die and add their attribute to it. If I ask them to make a task with bonus, they'll roll this, add their attribute, and they automatically get the bonus. This would be a critical success, by the way. Can't fail here. A 1 always fails. 12 never fails. And then, of course, even despite the difficulty level. And then, of course, for now, Brian has Wolfhound mooks. These are mooks that give him a bonus toward the things he does if he narrates how the Wolfhounds, if he gives them orders or if he narrates what they're doing, he gets that bonus. Dell and Sam may have mooks as well, but right now they haven't told me their characters for today. So, all right, thank you for watching. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. I will record the session from my point of view, so you will see in-game every roll I make, and when I reference the books, when I reference the charts, people will get a chance to follow along with what I'm doing as presenter. We will live stream it, but you won't see my books and things that I'll reference. But then I'll later put up the recording from my point of view, and you'll see the behind-the-scenes stuff in the books. For instance, if Dell ends up with a condition, right, I can click in here and say, okay, Dell, you're fatigued. Wait a second, I may have to do that. I may have to edit that in. I don't think I can just do it that way. No, so I'd have to come in here, and I'd have to give Dell a condition, right? Boom. So now he is fatigued, right? So I'll have to, there'll be things like that come up in session that I can handle here while the players are narrating their actions, etc. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.